All roads currently lead to Ayodhya. On the 22nd of January, the consecration ceremony will take place at the Grand Temple. It's a culmination of a journey that has spread across not years or decades, but centuries. Entire generations involved in this journey that is seeped in mythology, history, litigation, and violence. Before I take you down memory lane to actually mark out this entire journey, let's take a look at Ayodhya itself and why it's so important. The word Ayodhya literally means that which cannot be conquered, or something that's invincible. It's believed here is where Lord Ram, an incarnation of Vishnu, was born. It's also where he established Ram Rajya, a kind of administration which was just and unbiased, in which everyone was equal and everyone was provided for. Our journey begins in 1528, when Babur invaded India with the intention of setting up the Mughal Empire. After his invasion, in an attempt to bring his religion to the country that he had newly invaded, it is said that Babur demolished several temples and put up mosques in their place, including here in Ayodhya, where it is argued that an ancient temple was demolished and in its place a masjid was put up called Babri Masjid. Now, moving from the 1500s to 1859, where the Mughal Empire has ended and the British have taken over. The British, in order to maintain public order, erected a fence around the Babri Masjid, separated the places of worship. There was the inner sanctum or the inner dome where the Muslims were allowed to pray, and the outer area where the Hindus were allowed to pray. And this was done in the name of maintaining the peace. In 1885, a lawsuit was filed asking for permission to erect a temple in the outer court, close to the mosque. That permission was denied. In 1947, the British left India.
At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom.
And India finally had self-rule. Our story begins in 1949. In Ayodhya, there lived a sadhu. His name was Abhiram Das. He had moved from Bihar. He was considered a muscular sadhu who had some followers, and he had told his followers a story about a recurring dream he had in which Lord Ram appeared to him and told him personally that his place of birth was in fact under the central dome of the Babri Masjid in that very location. Abhiram Das narrated his dream to the Faizabad city magistrate Guru Dutt Singh, who had also claimed to have a similar dream. The two of them also then found a sympathizer in District Collector and Magistrate K.K. Nayak. In a book titled Ayodhya, The Dark Night, authors Krishna Jha and Dhirendra Jha said that the placing of the Ram Lalla's idol under the central dome was a coordinated effort with these top district officials and Abhiram Das. On the intervening night between December 22nd and 23rd, 1949, someone snuck into the mosque with an idol of Ram Lalla, placed it under the central dome. Through the night, the story that a little boy, aged about 4 or 5 years old, had appeared under the central dome behind the locked gates spread across the entire city. Many people then came to the mosque to pray, and they entered it. On December 26th, in a letter to the Uttar Pradesh Chief Secretary, the Faizabad District Magistrate K.K. Nair expressed surprise over the incident, and he also refused to carry out the orders he had received to remove the idols from the mosque. He in fact went one step further, wrote another letter the next day saying that he would be hard-pressed to find any Hindu who would agree to remove those idols. The entire structure was then locked up on the orders of the magistrate court. The locks would remain for decades, and in the meantime, a series of court cases were filed. In 1950, Gopal Visharda filed a suit in the Faizabad District Court for rights to worship the idol of Ram Lalla. In 1959, the Nirmohi Akhada filed a suit seeking possession of the site. Now, this is a sect among Hindus who claim that they are at all times in charge of management of the disputed site. In 1961, the Uttar Pradesh Sunni Central Waqf Board filed a suit for possession of the site as well. Almost 20 years later, in 1984, the Vishwa Hindu Parishad began a campaign to build a Ram temple in Ayodhya. Now remember, when the VHP was formed, one of its first orders of business was mobilizing Hindus around sacred geography and Hindu cosmology. What this basically meant were to look after the symbols and the issues that Hindus revered or they felt strongly about. And this was an attempt to build Hindu unity around points of devotion, or what is called Shraddha Kendras. The Bajrang Dal, which is the youth wing of the VHP, was formed during the course of the Ram Janmabhoomi movement. From 1984, the VHP initiated a series of processions called the Ram Janaki Rath Yatra in Ayodhya, which ratcheted up a lot of tension in North India and Central India. So the youth wing really was set up to protect the yatras, and they ended up giving us a rather muscular tone to the movement. Now in 1986, Rajiv Gandhi is the Prime Minister of the country. Enter the Shahbhanu Supreme Court case. Shahbhanu was a 62-year-old woman who had taken her husband to court demanding maintenance after he had given her triple talaq and divorced her. They had 5 children. Her lawyer husband contested that as per the Muslim personal law, she was only entitled to 3 months of maintenance and no more. The argument was supported by the All India Muslim Personal Law Board. The case went to Supreme Court, and the Chief Justice of India then, Y.V. Chandrachud, decided in favor of Shahbhanu. Muslim men were up in arms and they demanded relief from the government of the day. Under pressure, Rajiv Gandhi's government passed a law that overturned the verdict of the Shahbhanu case and said that the maintenance period should be limited to the Iddat period, which is actually only 3 months. This was largely seen as appeasement of Muslims, and this sort of politics received a lot of criticism. Rajiv Gandhi then came under pressure from his opposition and the criticism that he was facing. He, in response, had the locks removed from the Babri Masjid after decades to allow puja by Hindu devotees. In October and November 1989, the movement began picking up again. Puja shilas or bricks were brought in from all over the country to Ayodhya to build the Ram Mandir. November 9th, 1989, a shilanyas was proposed at the Ram temple, performed at a site that was agreed between various sides as largely undisputed. In the 1990s, the movement entered its most crucial phase. VP Singh was now Prime Minister. He implemented the recommendations of the Mandal Commission, reserving 27% of state-level government posts for people from lower castes, and this threatened the vote bank of the BJP. To counter its impact, the then president of the BJP, L.K. Advani, decided to embark on a Rath Yatra from Somnath in Gujarat till Ayodhya to extend support to VHP's movement for a Ram Mandir. A Toyota van was modified to look like a mythical chariot, and the very famous Rath Yatra began. L.K. Advani's Rath Yatra was a defining moment in modern political history of India. It started in Gujarat on September 25, 1990. It passed through 16 states in its journey, and it was scheduled to end in Ayodhya. Historian K.N. Panika notes that there were 166 communal riots that occurred between September 1st and November 20th that year, in which 564 people were killed. The largest number of riots happened in Uttar Pradesh, where 224 people died. The main purpose of the Yatra was to garner support for the construction of a Ram temple in Ayodhya. Advani was arrested when the Yatra passed through Bihar. Lalu Yadav was then the Chief Minister of Bihar. Even though Advani had been arrested, his supporters accompanied the Yatra and continued to march towards Ayodhya. Mulayam Singh Yadav, then the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, ordered the arrest of these activists. Accordingly, 150,000 individuals who were part of that Yatra were jailed. The unrest kept growing. In October 1990, some devotees climbed the domes of the Babri Masjid and damaged them and hoisted saffron flags. The compound wall was damaged as well. The situation was brought under control with central and state governments led by VP Singh and Mulayam Singh Yadav in the state and the centre respectively. In 1991, the political scene changed. The BJP government came into power in Uttar Pradesh, whereas in the centre, there was a Congress government headed by P.V. Narasimha Rao. Activities now were in top gear. The UP government issued a notification for land acquisition, followed by the demolition of certain structures on acquired land. The High Court passed an order allowing the UP government to take possession of the acquired land but prohibited any construction. Then, just 2 years later, there was a turning point. Car sevaks from all over the country gathered in Ayodhya for a massive rally. L.K. Advani, Murli Manohar Joshi and Uma Bharti addressed a crowd of 150,000 car sevaks in Ayodhya. In the afternoon, they overpowered the security forces, broke the locks, went in and demolished the Babri Masjid. Riots broke out across the country in cities like Mumbai, Surat, Ahmedabad, Kanpur, Delhi, Bhopal, resulting in loss of nearly 2,000 lives. As many as 900 people died in Mumbai alone in the riots that took place between 1992 and January 1993. The riots were then followed by the 1993 Mumbai blasts coordinated by Dawood Ibrahim, in which 250 lives were lost. Meanwhile, the idols were removed and then reinstalled. A wall shed was erected and President's rule was imposed in Uttar Pradesh. With this, the Ayodhya Ram Janmabhoomi Babri Masjid issue became center stage in Indian politics. With this, various petitions were also filed, including one by Ismail Farooqi in the Allahabad High Court challenging various aspects of the Act. The Supreme Court transferred all the writ petitions to itself, which was pending in the High Court. In October 24, the Supreme Court said the historic Ismaili Farooqi case that the mosque was not integral to Islam. 4 years later, in 2002, the VHP had set a deadline for the construction of the temple, and car sevaks from across the country were travelling to Ayodhya. A compartment of the Sabarmati Express carrying car sevaks was burnt in Godhra, in Gujarat, and riots followed. Thousands died. September 30th, 2010, the Allahabad High Court, in a 2:1 majority, ruled for a three-way split of the disputed area between the Sunni board, the Nirmohi Akhara, and Ramlalla, the child god who was party to the case. However, in May 9th, 2011, the Supreme Court stayed that High Court verdict. 5 years later, in 2017, the Chief Justice of India, J.S. Kehar, suggested an out-of-court settlement among the rival parties. But after 2 long years of negotiations, no agreement was arrived at. The litigation continued. The Supreme Court then put together a 5-judge bench to hear the case. Chief Justice Ranjan Gogoi, Justices Bobde, N.V. Ramana, Lalit, and D.Y. Chandrachud. However, Justice Lalit recused himself. The Supreme Court then had to put together another bench, and this one comprised of Chief Justice Ranjan Gogoi, Justice Bobde, D.Y. Chandrachud, Ashok Bhushan, and S.A. Nazir. On November 9th, 2019, the Supreme Court delivered a historic judgment. The judgment this time was unanimous. The Supreme Court granted the entire 2.77 acres of disputed land to the deity Ram Lalla. The possession of the land would remain with the central government. It was also decided that the central government and the Uttar Pradesh governments would allot 5 acres of land to the Muslims at a prominent place to build their mosque. I'm quoting out of the judgment right now. The judgment also said this: on the 6th of December 1992, the structure of the mosque was brought down and the mosque was destroyed. The destruction of the mosque was an egregious violation of the rule of law. The court acknowledged that this was wrong. Later, talking about the Ayodhya verdict, which incidentally was not signed by any of its authors, the current Chief Justice of India, Chandrachud, said that the 5 judges who delivered the historic Ayodhya ruling had unanimously decided there would be no authorship ascribed to that judgment. It would be the judgment of the court. After the judgment, a trust was formed and it was entrusted with the responsibility to build the Grand Temple. That Grand Temple is now preparing for inauguration as we speak. On the 22nd of January, the consecration ceremony will be performed. A new idol of Lord Ram will be installed at the ground floor of the temple, and it will finally be thrown open to the general public for darshan, fulfilling perhaps a centuries-old wish of devotees to pray in that spot.